Joining me now, we have Arizona Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari. She serves on the House Oversight and Natural Resources Committees. Congresswoman, it's good to see you again. So this new development, it's possible that two things can be true at once, correct? Because of the White House saying the talks have not been canceled. But then you can also have something delayed or, as we've heard with Inzamam's reporting, on hold. It makes sense, doesn't it, when you have efforts at diplomacy on whatever level, lower level, upper level, being sidelined when you have strikes ongoing in both directions from both sides.
Exactly. Unfortunately, none of this is really surprising. I think, obviously from the very beginning, this war has been absolutely catastrophic, led by the United States and Israel, and started in the middle of diplomatic negotiations around Iran's nuclear program. After, 100-some days of war, when Donald Trump and Iran and Pakistan and other countries announced this MOU, it was very clear that this is going to be a very bumpy ride. It is essentially an agreement to then have 60 days of negotiations, and some of the thorniest issues have yet to be worked out, whether that be Iran's uranium enrichment, whether that be the fighting in Lebanon and how to end the fighting in Lebanon, whether that be, the sanctions relief that Iran is fighting for. This is going to be very difficult. The other challenge here is that we have extremists in power in every government involved. You have the Islamic Republic still in power in Iran, despite the fact that Donald Trump claims that there has been regime change and we have a new and better regime. That's not true. Donald Trump is an extremist. He's a warmonger. He has never been able to stay focused on an important issue in this country for more than 2 minutes because he's distracted by his ballroom and the reflecting pool. And then, of course, you have Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, who also does not want to see an end to this conflict. So the circumstances are incredibly, incredibly challenging all around here. And the ultimate result is that lives are on the line. People suffer. The U.S. economy is in shambles. Thousands of innocent people, including 13 American service members and innocent civilians in Iran and Lebanon, have been murdered. This war needs to come to an end. So my plea to the Trump administration is to take this seriously, put real people in charge of these negotiations, not your relatives or real estate guys like Witkoff and Jared Kushner. We need adults in the room to handle this and bring this war to an end once and for all.
You mentioned all the thorny issues, and among them, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran said today that the MOU gives it sole authority to manage the strait. It warned against interference in the waterway. So what do you make, first of all, of that? And what do these flaring hostilities between Iran and the U.S. mean for the overall interim deal? Are you concerned at all that it could fall apart?
I've always been concerned that it can fall apart, again, because of the individuals who are leading the processes, because of the erratic nature of our own president. I mean, the fact that he took again to social media to threaten annihilation of the country of Iran is a disgrace. It's absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing. There's no words for the way that our government and this administration are treating all of this. I mean, you cannot be in the middle of negotiations and every other day essentially threaten to use a nuclear weapon. I mean, when you're talking about ending a civilization or ending a country, what does that mean? And so that is always a concern. And I think why I have continued to call for the 25th Amendment, because I think Donald Trump is completely unfit for office. And then back to the Strait of Hormuz, per your question, it's important to continue to remind Americans that the Strait of Hormuz was open before this war began. There were no issues with the Strait of Hormuz. This is a catastrophe of Donald Trump's doing because he's unfit, because he's erratic, because he's a warmonger. And again, ultimately, the deals that, the MOU that we've seen, Iran does hold the cards in that. And I think most experts would agree that Iran has been more successful in the negotiations, and they have the leverage because the United States was unsuccessful in whatever it was we were trying to do by starting this war.
Your voice may be among the most interesting and thoughtful about all this because you are the first Iranian American elected to Congress. What are you hearing from fellow Iranian Americans and any contacts that you have in Iran on where this stands today? Is there frustration with the way this war has ended for now, given all of the blood and treasure lost from both sides?
Well, I think it's been an evolution for most people. It is true that at the very outset of this war, especially even right before the war started, when the massacres were taking place in Iran, the government, was cracking down. It's estimated they killed thousands and thousands of Iranian civilians who were protesting. And Donald Trump went out and said, keep fighting, help is on the way. That was his message to the Iranian people. And so for most people around the world, when you hear the president of the United States of America say something, that means something, and you believe them. And so many Iranians inside the country, outside the country, in diaspora communities believe that. And so when, the war started with the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei, many felt some hope that this may bring about a downfall of this horrific regime that has been in power for 50 years. But I think very quickly it became clear that that was not the case. The administration continued to change their public and private reasoning for the war. When I asked in a classified briefing very early on, a few weeks in, I asked Secretary Rubio if a democratic transition in Iran is one of the objectives of the mission, he very clearly told me no. It's not part of the mission. And Donald Trump has made that clear in recent weeks, as he has said, we never cared about regime change, or there has already been regime change. Ultimately, the result for Iranian people has been horrific, because you now have a younger regime. I think that the fact that they were able to withstand U.S. military aggression has emboldened them, has strengthened them. Thousands of people have been murdered. I mean, businesses, apartments, homes destroyed in the process. Iran is also a country that is economically devastated because of the crippling sanctions that we have placed on them for so many years, that have largely hurt the people more than the regime, because the regime is incredibly corrupt, right? So even with the sanctions, they are able to harbor most of the money. They run the most profitable businesses in the country. And so regular Iranians are the ones who hurt the most. So long term, this war in the short term needs to end, but long term, I think we just really need to reevaluate our policy towards Iran and look at how we can actually support human rights and the people in the country, and hopefully encourage a better future for them.
Let me ask you about something completely different, and that being the Oversight Democrats who have launched a probe into the two companies awarded the no-bid contracts to renovate the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool following the many problems that it has developed since its refurbishing. Government documents obtained by the New York Times undercut Trump's claims of vandalism. Have you seen any evidence of sabotage? And if incompetent work is to blame, will Congress look to hold the White House accountable?
I can tell you that the Oversight Committee is going to be investigating every corrupt maneuver that this Trump administration has pulled, which the list is long. This is the most corrupt administration in American history, and it's not even close. The fact that J.D. Vance essentially admitted that himself by saying that Watergate would not last in today's media cycle shows that he knows that they are extremely corrupt and they are getting away with so much every single day at the expense of Americans. These examples in terms of the contracts that Donald Trump is throwing out there for all of the White House renovations and the reflecting pool and all of this other absolute nonsense is just the latest examples of the corruption. He is completely deranged. I found the reporting recently about the fact that in the early days of the war, he seemed more interested in talking to his staff about maple trees for the White House than how to end the conflict. To be extremely telling, not surprising, everything that we need to know. Donald Trump is corrupt. He thinks he's a king. He's an authoritarian. And I look forward to when we are in the majority, because on the Oversight Committee, Democrats are ready to go with a list of subpoenas, investigations into the corruption, and we will hold all of these criminals accountable.
Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari, thank you so much for joining me today. It was good to see you. How large